GWATA TV gives you a first look at North Central Washington's business news. You'll hear from our local business, tech, and education companies as Jenny discusses hot topics and current events with some of the best innovators and pioneers in North Central Washington.
Hello, North Central Washington, and welcome to GWATA TV. I'm your host, Jenny Rojanasatian, and I'm so excited to be back in the NCW Life Channel studios filming GWATA TV today. It's been about 7 months since our nonprofit has had a chance to come back on air and do our GWATA TV episodes. And in those 7 months, a lot has happened in our region, in our world, and of course for our families because of COVID-19. If you've never watched our TV show before, we bring on different guests to talk about what's happening in the business community, in education, and in technology. And on today's first episode, I am bringing in Shiloh Burgess, Executive Director of the Wenatchee Valley Chamber of Commerce, to talk about what's happening in our business community in light of the pandemic that unfortunately is still happening. Stay tuned, we'll be right back on air with Shiloh Burgess. And welcome back to GWATA TV, our first episode of the new season. And I want to welcome our guest today, Shiloh Burgess, Executive Director from the Wenatchee Valley Chamber of Commerce. Shiloh, so good to have you on air.
Thank you. I feel special that I get to be one of your inaugural guests today. That's fun.
Well, you know, I'm always so comfortable talking to you. We've got a great relationship. Our nonprofits work very collaboratively together. And it's been 7 months since we've seen each other.
Yeah.
So really good to catch up.
Lockdown, COVID will do that to you.
Absolutely. So let's start a little bit. For those who may not be familiar with the Wenatchee Valley Chamber of Commerce, you have an incredible team. You do a lot of great work in the community. Tell us a little bit about your organization.
Sure. The mission of the Wenatchee Valley Chamber of Commerce is to champion our community's quality of life and economic vitality through sound business advocacy and collaborative leadership. So really, we're a nonprofit. We have about 670 members. We actually, surprisingly enough, have a lot of nonprofit members. So we have about 85 to 90 nonprofit members. We'll see how that fares next year. And then the rest are business members from around the region. So we not only have member businesses that are in Wenatchee and East Wenatchee, but we actually extend all the way up to the Canadian border. And then Leavenworth, Cashmere, Chelan, and whatnot. So we're more of a regional chamber, but it's a great organization that focuses on a lot of community development work and a lot of advocacy.
And your big event, your annual evening gala, was right before COVID, so we got to have that celebration, hear about the incredible work the chamber had done through the 2019 year. Let's talk a little bit about how has COVID impacted your nonprofit organization, what's happening at the chamber right now?
Yeah, so kind of a surreal time. We were the last major function in the community. I think really literally the very next day, everything was banned and we were heading towards a lockdown, a 2-week that then extended into a month that extended to 2 months. So like many organizations, we started the process of what do we need to do to keep our team safe? And so we went to an all at-home work environment for everyone. And then as we started looking at what this was going to mean for the community, the business community, we had to make some tough decisions, and we reduced staff and we furloughed staff, myself included, which was a little radical decision, but it was really a good thing to do at the time. We needed a lot of tactical things being done, and that's my team. They do a lot of the implementing, so making sure they stayed stabilized. We also sent a letter out to our membership and said, hey, if you haven't paid your 2020 membership dues yet, we're not going to pursue those at this time, right? What we need to focus on is figuring out how do we move forward together, and this is not the time to be dropping any members. So we haven't dropped any of our business members for 2020. It's actually really fun. What is happening is our other members, businesses that are doing really well, are starting to sponsor those members that haven't been able to pay their membership dues. So that's been a really encouraging thing that has been happening within the membership, because we want to stay connected as a collective unit.
Well, I think that's a testament to the business climate here, which is to support entrepreneurship, support local businesses, and to really rally when we need to. So I think that's huge. And you've got an incredible board. Stacy Lukensmeyer is your board president this year. Obviously, she's very passionate about entrepreneurship, leads a lot of efforts through the college. So kudos to you and your team for, really taking a hard look fast, making a lot of really tough changes. I know that's challenging. It's been a really challenging time for nonprofits, and you guys are really we're so transparent and vulnerable in sharing that experience.
Well, we were lucky. About 18 months prior to that, we started a process called EOS. So we started to implement the entrepreneurial operating system actually within the chamber. And so by doing that, we were able to really understand, what wasn't going to happen, what could still happen, and where were the strategic cuts that needed to be made, and then act on it. And so we've pivoted. I hate that word. I know it's like the word of 2020, but
it's the hot word of 2020.
It is the hot word.
Pivot.
That and toilet paper, because you can never find it. Still
Right.
today, where is it going? I don't understand. Anyways, no. So we were able just to really redirect what our core focus was going to be for the year and make those tough staffing decisions and get that out of the way, and then get back into serving the business community full steam and the greater community at large. And so if it wasn't for EOS, I don't know that we would have been as successful. So we're really excited that we have taken that on in our organization and implemented it.
And we have on the GWATA board and chamber board
Yeah.
a great EOS implementer.
Yes. Sherry is amazing.
Yes. So definitely look up.
Yes. Traction Advantage. Sorry. I don't know if I can
Exactly.
do that on GWATA TV, but
Yes,
hey.
you can give a plug for Traction
There you
Advantage. Look her up. She's got.
Sherry Kuhn's awesome, and no, it really helped my board too, because that's hard when you're looking at reducing personnel. They're not just numbers in your HRQ, right? Like they're people that are giving you their time, and there's lives attached to it. And so very grateful. Both the employees we needed to let go were hired within 2 weeks. So good to know we're growing good people at the chamber, and they're doing great. So that's fantastic. And then everybody is back, and we're moving forward. We'd like to see our tasting room open in a more robust way, but we're excited about what the other tasting rooms kind of in downtown are doing to keep the wine flowing.
Yeah.
So
So as you said, you're back.
I'm back. So great.
Back in action. The chamber's leading a multitude of efforts, which we're going to dive into the next segment. But since you mentioned tasting room, can you share a little bit about where you're at in case people have never physically come to your location? Obviously, it's by appointment only right
Yep.
now because of COVID,
Yep.
but just give some framework for where the chamber's
Yeah,
located.
we're located right next door to the Wenatchee Convention Center on the corner of 2nd and Wenatchee Avenue. We moved there about almost 2 years ago now, which is fantastic. Great little mix. There's a cool little restaurant behind us that's a lot of fun. Just ate there last night, actually. Delicious. I totally recommend the New York steak, just saying. Anyhow. But yeah, so we're right there on the corner, which is excellent. The biggest part, I think, and the benefit of that is when conventions are in, our visitor center is located right next to our convention center and right in the downtown core. And we were a little nervous when we made that move because it's a beautiful retail space. And so to put office space, and we do have retail with bottle sales, which is fantastic, but right on, Wenatchee Avenue, we weren't sure how the downtown community was going to feel about that. The businesses have been so awesome. They love having us there. They're very supportive of having the local wine shop right there in cider shop, which is fun. And so we've had a really good run of it. We've got a nice boardroom there. We've got great office space for the team, and it's conveniently located to everywhere we need to be. And visitors have no problem finding us now, so it's our home for a while.
And speaking of visitors, there is still some tourism
Yeah.
happening in the community, obviously. We want to encourage people to be smart, be safe.
Yeah.
What does tourism look like right now in
Yeah.
our community?
So it's interesting. Wenatchee, Chelan County has always been a drive market. So we, believed we would bounce back a little bit quicker than most places. At the macro level, at the Chelan County level, Lake Chelan has probably had one of its most robust years than it's ever had, mainly because they have a high presence of vacation rentals. Leavenworth has been sitting pretty high, 85-90% occupancy in the summer months, even though they haven't had their festivals. But they did a really cool thing of blocking off all of Front Street and then just moving a lot of their retail and restaurant and other activities out to that street, which has been super cool to see how that's been responded to. And then Wenatchee, a lot of our business is either built on business, so convention center business or business travel, leisure travel, which really takes up our weekend markets, and then medical tourism, which is interesting, but because we serve a 4-county area and folks have medical procedures here, a lot of times they'll come in the night before, have their procedure, and then, go home, especially if it's an early morning. So our leisure market has done pretty well. We actually were surprised in our August projections. I think we're a little over 60%, 64% occupancy, which is still down about 10-20% from where we typically are this time of year. But our business travel has not bounced back. So we've lost $1.8 million in convention business this year. In the Wenatchee MSA, we still have about 2,500 what I'd call hospitality employees that are still unemployed. And that's about 33.8% of, exactly 33.8%, according to Don Messick, our labor economist, of the unemployed population here. So that's really concerning for us, and that industry is definitely an at-risk industry. So anything we can do to support our local restaurants, support our local retailers, help communicate. A lot of our hotels are doing awesome things around their sanitation safety standards and those kind of things. So it'll come back. It's just coming back slower here because of the way our business was built.
And you're right, in the tourism, it's so complex, those different markets. And one of the biggest ways that we can help until we can really promote tourism and get those conventions back is to support local. So considering a dinner at your favorite locally owned restaurant or taking a staycation, right?
Yep.
Heading up locally to Chelan and Leavenworth and some of the great places right here in our backyard. Now, I want to dive into the Recovery Council, the Business Toolkit, and some of the other ways the Chamber is really advocating for businesses. But first, we're going to take a short commercial break. So stay tuned. We'll be right back on air here on the NCW Life channel. We are back here on GWATA TV at the NCW Life studio. My guest today, Shiloh Burgess from the Wenatchee Valley Chamber of Commerce. We have been talking a little bit about what's been happening at the Chamber post-COVID, of course about your incredible organization, which everyone should learn more about on your website. But let's dive into the Recovery Council and really what the Chamber's been leading since the pandemic happened. So take me back to March.
March, oh, how life changed in March.
It seems like a million years ago.
Yes, it does. COVID years is what we talk about.
Yes.
So initially, the Chamber focused on being really a credible resource, and so a lot of information was flying out from whether it was the Center for Disease Control or the governor's office, the state being the first state that had a community-transmitted COVID case. So unfortunately, we were leading the nation on that front. So it's really critical that we had the best, most current, up-to-date information present. So we adapted our website, created a COVID-19 response page. We developed a partnership with the health district early on and had weekly calls with their administrator. We still do put out a weekly COVID-19 update. A lot of that is around now the changes of regulations versus initially it was a lot of just health information. How do we keep ourselves safe from the disease, right? And then as everybody was going indoors, a variety of challenges for businesses. So just key resources. I mean, if your company is not used to working remotely, most of us all tried to do remote work or did remote work, and so making that shift, using Teams, Zoom calls, all of these new technologies that were out there. So really the very first thing was being a good conduit of information. And then we started looking at the fact that this is going to be a crisis situation. This is going to be in some ways like a disaster for the community. The question is, how big of a disaster? How long is it going to last? What's the infection rate going to be? Initially, we thought we were going to see mass casualties. Trying to mentally prepare yourself for all of that, right? Which is very difficult. And a lot of swift changes, a lot of people being laid off, a lot of livelihoods, the delay in getting unemployment insurance. Just a lot of emotional turmoil. I like to say, probably most of April, May, and June, a lot of the people I was talking to were stuck in fight or flight, right? We were trying to get them back in their rational mind so they could focus, which is natural when you're in a trauma situation. And this, for a lot of people, was traumatic, right? All of a sudden, you're out of control. You have no agency. It was difficult for them. So as much stability, information. One thing I've learned from the pandemic is the more accurate, consistent messaging we can put out and getting people on the same page, the better we're able to make good decisions and move forward.
And on that communications piece, one of the things I saw the Chamber do right away was it wasn't communication just to members, right? This was community-wide information. And a time where we were all being hit with an overwhelming amount of emails and news messages, and it was really hard to wade through what you needed to know and what was the latest in information.
Yeah, what we really tried to focus in on, though, was just the business community, right? Already they're used to receiving information, and they believe us to be a credible resource for them. We've had an advocacy program So we've had government interactions pretty consistently with them for 4 years. So we had our expanded listserv, which is about 2,600 people. And that's really just where we focused. And so our information was around businesses, nonprofits, and employee support. And then that's how our website was organized. And then, of course, anybody could access any of that. Same with our health district calls. We really tried to restrict those to members, but as we got on and there were some community concerns, we expanded them a little bit for that purpose. But really, we wanted to be that trusted resource for businesses so they could wade through that noise and just come and go, okay. You had the SBA loans coming out, you had PPP coming out, and all of this new stuff trying to help them. So, my best hire, and sometimes it's better to be lucky than good on timing, was Sasha Slayman, right? She became our government affairs director. She started on March 2nd. Banquet week, right? That's what she has. And then all of a sudden you're government affairs and go, it's COVID. And we probably wouldn't have been able, actually, not probably, we would not have been able to do what we did without her help, without having her on the team and her expertise and just her passion and understanding of government and all things government and how it works. And she's a tremendous communicator. So she just took the ball, jumped right in, and next thing you know, she's helping businesses fill out applications, and she's becoming the COVID expert in town, and she's like, I didn't, and all at the same time starting on East Wenatchee City Council. So, what a dynamic time for her, and what a great asset for us and for the community. So we got really, really lucky with that.
So you built out the communications. At what point did you guys identify that you also wanted to do a recovery council and dive deeper? Because as you said, we were in fight or flight mode. Everything's being shut down, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. But that was just about kind of survival. And this is going to be years in recovery.
Yeah.
And still a lot of ambiguity, of course, right now.
So, when we started hearing how are we going to emerge out of the lockdown, looking at the phased program, having some privy conversations to what that might look like, what that process would look like, we knew it was going to be done by industry. We knew that certain industries may have easier access to certain PPP or PPE versus others. So how can we collectively bring the community together to try to resolve challenges that might happen as we move through those phases, right? Challenges, we didn't move very quickly through those phases. So we did stand up the Recovery Council. We asked both of the mayors to chair that. They said yes. And then we went through industry and tried to pick strategic industry leaders, many of which had already served on the chamber board because they were familiar with us, and said, hey, we'd like you to come together and help us navigate restarting the community. Sadly for us, the restart of the community has been like fits and starts, right? It really hasn't ever got its engine fully back online. It's just been a more slow trickle than what we thought was going to be a larger, opening of the floodgate again. So that's been a bit challenging, but the work that they've done, having, medical community, Latino community, business community all together, making sure we've got good, accurate information. The first project they did was the business toolkit, which is really awesome.
What a great resource.
To help businesses really understand, what they needed to do to prepare to reopen, how to create a COVID-safe environment for their patrons and for their employees. And then, we looked at community-based testing. We really were having a hard time understanding what was the rate of infection within the community, the actual rate. We weren't being able to test enough in the community. We were just doing symptomatic testing, and there was a lot of shortage on tests availability, so they were restricted, and how we were able to use them because we just couldn't get them. So as that changed in the community-based testing, let us know that we had an infection rate at about 1.2, 1.4%, which, was not fully where we wanted it to be in terms of preserving the asset, which is the hospital's capacity there, but not as horrible as it could be. And then looking at tools to create masking campaigns and putting masks in the hands of every employee for every employer.
And you distributed thousands.
Thousands and thousands of masks, and it was a big thank you to Chelan and Douglas County and the CARES Act. They bought the masks. And then Casuar Valley Bank partnered with the health district to get disposable masks as part of the council. And then Linda Haglin had a colleague in Pasco who was doing some really awesome Latino wrestling masks that were super popular. We were seeing less compliance, if you were, less understanding or less wearing in the Latino community, and really I think that's just education. Initially there was no information in our area or anywhere in the state in Spanish. And so one of the biggest services we provided was standing up and helping with that Latino Information Network through OVOF, and then translating information in Spanish and getting it out there, because there was nobody doing that.
And just really briefly, Our Valley, Our Future, OVOF.
Yeah.
If someone's not familiar, what is Our Valley, Our Future?
Yeah, Our Valley, Our Future is the driver of our long-term community strategic plan, or strategic vision and action plan. They really are a convener of important conversations and a skilled facilitator in bringing groups to collaboratively work together on implementing that action plan. And so they're really, I call them the grassroots. A lot of times organizations like GWATA and Wenatchee Valley Chamber work with grass tops, right? They are there for the people. They're made up of the people. It's been awesome. I've been there since the inception, which has been a lot of fun. But really, they pivoted too to provide that really important need to our Latino community, and that was a fun partnership we did with them and Columbia Valley Community Health.
And that's a continuing partnership with Our Valley, Our Future and communications in Spanish, not just back in the early days with masking, but continuous.
Yeah.
So what does that look like for the rest of the year in terms of Our Valley, Our Future and getting those communications out?
Yeah, they've gone now to a weekly kind of COVID update that's translated in both Spanish and English, so it can be either really relevant information to us as a local community, or even kind of what's happening at the national level. So if there's information coming out from the CDC, or just stories of interest related to COVID on vaccines or those kind of things, trying to keep the same level of education and opportunity to have access to information equal between our communities. It's difficult at times to get information to our Latino community from a mainstream, if you will, organization. And so they've done a phenomenal job with this informal network folks, and really grateful for all of those volunteers that have stepped up and been communicators and joined in that effort. I think they formalized it a little bit more once the Joint Information Center was stood up. There's been some changes, but it's really helped us build trust and build inroads with the Latino community for OVOF, which has been great.
Well, and working with the Latino community is really important to the Chamber. You recently merged the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce within your organization as well.
Yeah, so the North Central Washington Hispanic Chamber actually disbanded. So they closed shop the 31st of December 2019, and we announced at our banquet, but we're starting to plan the formation of the Hispanic Business Council.
Okay.
Yeah, so which is really exciting. We have currently 12 members sitting on that council, and this year is kind of the roll up the sleeves and what should this look like within the organization. So the next meeting of the board, they'll kind of put forward that structure piece. And then they'll start building out their work plan for 2021. We've got a great group of individuals and a lot of young entrepreneurs that are in that group. So that's been fantastic, and I'm excited that they're going to be producing some really great things for the community. Yeah. They really are.
Now, if someone is watching today and wants to get connected with, the new advisory council to get the updates from Our Valley, Our Future, how can they get more information and resources that we've talked about today?
Yeah, I would encourage them to go on our website, Wenatchee.org, if they've got access to the internet. Look at our COVID-19 page. You could send an email to us, info@wenatchee.org, and request anything if you'd like connections to OVOF and their weekly emails that they put out on their kind of like a situation report almost, or any of our email database. They can do it that way. It's easiest. Or you can call us at the Chamber, 662-2116. And we'll be happy to help you.
And then, of course, a lot of your materials are online, like this reopening toolkit. There's still some businesses that have not reopened since the pandemic. Yes. So there's a lot of resources in here that I encourage people to take advantage of. As our time winds down here, any advice to the community about supporting businesses right now and how we can really lean in this together during this crisis?
If I could make one ask of us, especially because we're going into what I call the season of gathering, it's that we gather responsibly. I know that there's been a lot of messaging to us not to gather. The truth of the matter is we are still gathering, but really understanding how important these things are to keeping you and your family safe and protected, but really to keep your community open and everyone protected. And so the best thing you can do for our businesses, they need capital, which means they need customers. They need confident customers that will refer other customers. So as you think about going into the holiday season, my challenge to you is do all of your shopping locally. If you can do it, we like to call it the Wenatchee Avenue Challenge, but anywhere in the Valley, if you can support a local retailer, you're supporting a local job. And that's what they need. And if that favorite retailer of yours or experience is not open, see if they've got a gift card, right? We are coming back, right? 2021, Lord help us all, will look different and hopefully better for the business community, and we need you. So your support and your cooperation and wearing these and investing financially as you can. And then also, if you can, think about being generous, right? There's a lot of folks that are financially struggling, and so maybe you don't need a lot of stuff and you want to help someone, make a donation to a local charity. Be really helpful.
Well, those are great takeaway messages. Thank you, Shiloh, for coming on
Thank
air with me.
you for having me.
Thank all of you for tuning in to GWATA TV, and we will see you again next week.
Since 1999, GWATA has served as North Central Washington's Tech Alliance. As a 501c3, our mission is to bring people and technology resources together to create a thriving community. Through our work, we aim to inspire, engage, and connect.